To survive, animals must satisfy two essential requisites: food and reproduction. These processes occur in the environment in which they have evolved and to which they have adapted. The adaptation takes millions of years, and those species that are successful have developed both physical and behavioral tools that allow them to survive harmoniously with their environment and its inhabitants. Nourishment is the most important requisite in order to obtain the necessary energy to carry out its vital functions. All species participate in a drama of nourishment, in which some species are the sustenance of others. To eat, and not to be eaten, then, becomes a principal necessity of all animals. Nature always levels out the effects of natural catastrophes, producing an equilibrium between species. This has produced the extraordinary biodiversity of more than 1 million species classified to date on planet Earth. Man himself is the only one who has escaped this natural control, and who continues to assault and damage both nature and himself by infringing the unwritten laws of nature. At first glance, mammals could be considered as unique and excellent land animals. Many small and large mammals have partially conquered the aerial milieu, some because they can actually fly, and others because they are found in the canopy of trees. Also, there are mammals that have adapted to the aquatic environment, from which the seed of life originally developed. Amphibians and many reptiles divide their lives between both terrestrial and aquatic habitats. Obviously, birds conquered the air millions of years ago and share this medium with insects. The adaptations developed by birds are as varied as they are unique. Almost all avian species fly, with the exception of a few who walk or run. Many of those that do fly utilize the aquatic medium for food. Others search for their sustenance in the plains, in forests, on the ground, in the air, or in trees. Birds that are excellent climbers use their tails to aid in climbing. Among insects and other invertebrates, we have an incredible range of possibilities. They may live in the air, in trees, under the soil, on the surface or underwater, within plants, and in nests that they themselves build. Those animals that live on the ground and are incapable of climbing can only consume what grows on the ground, what falls on it, or other terrestrial animals. Since grasses are generally poor in nutrients, herbivorous mammals need to eat large amounts to survive. This is the reason why they forage during most of the day and often part of the night. Grasses consist mostly of cellulose, a material that does not decompose into nutrients in the digestive system. However, the digestive tract of herbivores contains symbiotic bacteria, which aid in the assimilation of cellulose by biochemically decomposing it. Some species of rodents, like the capybara, have developed additional nutritional strategies. The bacteria that compose cellulose are found in their blind tract. Therefore, they are not able to decompose it during its first passage through the intestine. So they practice what is technically called coprophagy. They eat their own feces to assimilate the cellulose. That is the reason they seem so inactive during the mornings, when they are simply recycling the grasses they ate the previous afternoon or evening. The capybara is ponderous, barrel-shaped, and stands very low to the ground. Therefore, at any threat, they take to the water, where they spend most of their time when they are not foraging on the land. They even copulate in the water. They are also excellent swimmers. The tapir, the largest South American mammal, also has a stocky body. The tapirs feed on fruits and vegetable matter on the ground. Their trunk has nothing to do with that of the elephant, as they are more closely related to the rhinoceros or horse. Like the capybara, the tapir has developed great proficiency in the water, enabling him to cross forest rivers and escape from his few enemies, such as the jaguar and the puma. Coatimundi, or ring-tailed coati, is a forest animal feeding on practically anything he finds on the ground by using his mobile nose to find its prey among the fallen leaves. The rabid squirrels feed mostly on fruits and seeds in trees, although they do not hesitate to raid any nest they may find. Their long tail provides the necessary counterweight for jumping between branches. The agouti is yet another of the larger South American forest rodents that forages on the ground in search of fruits and seeds. Its very strong hindquarters enables it to move extremely fast, thus escaping from any enemy. Like a primate, it holds its food in its front paws while eating. The collared peccary is a species of wild pig that also forages for vegetable matter on the ground. In its evolution, the anteaters have lost their teeth, but developed a long tubular mouth as well as a long sticky tongue, which they use to extract ants and termites from their nests. They also have long, powerful claws, utilized for opening the nests of their prey, but which also can be very uncomfortable for walking. In the trees we find the small nocturnal night monkey, which lives on fruits and insects. The proportion of the head to body size of the capuchin monkey is barely inferior to that of a man or chimpanzee, thus assuring him of a notable place among the primates. In comparison to the rather large size of its body, the diet of fruit and insects of the capuchin seems to be very small. As a result, he must spend almost the whole day foraging for food and will even raid nests for their young and eggs. The howler is the largest American monkey. Its diet is fundamentally leaves, on which it can live for weeks without the necessity of searching for water on the ground. The ptera is arboreal, feeding on a rather wide range of prey, including searching for honey in the nests of bees and hornets. It is extremely difficult to observe. The fox searches for small mammals and invertebrates on the ground. The kinkajou is arboreal and very difficult to observe. Although it is omnivorous, its main food is fruits and insects. It has a long extrudable tongue, possibly used to reach nectar and honey. The really large predators at the top of the food chain are the felines. The jaguarundi is approximately double the size of the domestic cat. It generally feeds on mammals, reptiles, and some birds it finds on the ground, as it rarely climbs. Formerly common in American forests, the ocelot is now in danger of extinction. It feeds on small mammals, reptiles, as well as any birds that it is able to trap. It may spend time in trees, but does not hunt there. The adult animal is hunted for its pelt. The young are taken for mascots, which in the long run cannot be maintained, because basically they are wild animals. The puma is found from Canada to Argentina. Together with the jaguarundi, it is the only one-colored feline. It is terrestrial and solitary. Due to its size, it may feed on almost any mammal that it is able to catch. Unfortunately, the puma is also in danger of extinction. Finally, we have the jaguar, the largest South American carnivorous animal, in danger of extinction due to human persecution and the destruction of its habitat. Among birds, feeding strategies are widely varied. Their beaks and feet are tools they have developed for these strategies, as their wings are used only for flying. Numerous species and families may feed on fruits or vegetable matter in lesser or greater degree. To this end, they have developed wide and short beaks, as may be seen in the fruit eaters. The family of parrots and macaws have a strong, hooked beak as an aid to breaking very hard seeds. On the other hand, the toucan, with its enormous beak, is only able to consume soft fruits that it can eat whole. It also eats chicks and eggs. Members of the family of the curassows and chachalacas also consume fruits and vegetable matter. These seed eaters are small birds with short, strong beaks capable of cracking seeds. They also have a crop for storing and pre-digesting seeds. Pigeons and doves do not break the seeds they consume, but rather swallow them whole. They do have a crop, but they also swallow small stones to help in grinding the seeds in their stomachs, since their stomach muscles are not sufficiently strong to do so. Two of the most beautiful representatives of American ornithological fauna are found in the Andean and Guianan cocks of the rock. Among the very few herbivorous or leaf-eating avian species is the Watson, a bird of prehistoric characteristics, including a huge crop for storing and processing the enormous amount of food that it must consume. A very special source of food shared with some insects is that of nectar, On the one hand are the flower piercers, which open the base of the flowers with their long curved beaks and extract the nectar with their tubular-shaped tongues. On the other hand, we have the hummingbirds, found only in the Americas. The largest number of animal species are found among the insects and the arachnids. Consequently, the number of insect-eating birds is also very large. It is their efficient control of insects that allows us to live on this insect planet. Morphologically, they possess a long, thin beak, at times ending in a hook. Some search for insects on the ground. Others hunt on the water. Still others hunt in the air. Others dive to catch aquatic insects. Those birds adapted to spend part of their lives on the water do so because their food source is precisely there, especially fish and invertebrates. The techniques used vary, but in general they have large feet, permitting them to be above the water and avoid wetting or damaging their plumage. They catch their prey with their beaks, which may be straight or curved, thin or strong. The prey is killed prior to being swallowed. There are also those species that dive from a certain height into the water to capture their prey, or those that swim underwater. Carnivorous birds are the avian equivalent to the large cats among mammals. They possess a strong hooked beak necessary for tearing the meat into small pieces. They also possess very strong feet and claws. Some hunt their prey in the air, although the majority capture prey on the ground. There are those who hunt only specific prey, such as the laughing hawk that feeds exclusively on reptiles. The snail kite is able to extract snails from their shells with the greatest of ease. The black-collared hawks usually fish in lagoons and swamps, but when fish are scarce, they also are able to extract snails with the same dexterity as the snail kite. Small hawks, such as the roadside hawk, usually prey on insects and small vertebrates. The bat falcon specializes in birds and bats that he hunts in the evening. The crane hawk prefers to hunt lizards in trees. Among the birds, there are carrion feeders, who recycle the energy of dead animals in the savanna. They are the sanitation engineers. Black and turkey vultures have bald heads with no feathers, enabling them to bury their heads in the innermost parts of cadavers. The heads are sterilized by absorbing the ultraviolet rays of the sun. Black vultures urinate on their legs and feet to disinfect them, as they are capable of producing an antiseptic in their urine. The caracaras are omnivorous and opportunists. They usually eat insects, but will also consume vegetable matter, eggs, and chicks, as well as carrion. The mobility of amphibians and reptiles may seem to be more restricted than that of mammals. Nevertheless, many lizards that we see on the ground also climb trees to feed, sleep, and hide from predators. Some of the larger animals, such as the caimans and crocs, search for their prey in the water where they spend the greater part of their day feeding on fish, although they're not loath to trap any bird that may fall from the tree, such as the chicks of herons or egrets. If they are hungry, they will also attack any mammal that may approach their water hole to drink. The aquatic tortoises feed in the water or at its edge on vegetable matter or small invertebrates. Some are exclusively terrestrial. Until now, we have seen some of the adaptations to different environments of various animals of the Orinoco-Amazon basin, as well as the tools developed to feed in these habitats. But based on the premise that the principal preoccupation of animals is to eat and not to be eaten, what are the strategies that they employ to succeed? Perhaps the oldest and most commonly observed is that of becoming blurred with their environment by the use of camouflage or disguise. One might think that camouflage is an extremely defensive arm utilized by small animals or those that do not possess much mobility, but such is not the case. With camouflage, some animals may not be noticed by their predators, as well as by the prey they seek to attack. There is no doubt that among insects and invertebrates, we have outstanding examples of mimicry. Some may fly, and others not. Snakes hide in places where they may not be noticed or seen unless they move. Some reptiles are covered with the same material as their surroundings. Among mammals, there are interesting examples. The spots of the felines hide their bodies in vegetation to the point they are practically invisible in the thickets. The majority have dun or drab colors that blend perfectly with the soil of the forest or the plains. Arboreal animals mimic the colors of leaves and branches. It would seem that birds have no need of camouflage, but at times they do not wish to escape. They wish to rest or feed in peace. During the day, the great coot sleeps perched in a tree, simulating one of the branches. Also during the day, the double-striped thickney is found in the savanna, perfectly camouflaged with its surroundings. The striated heron is difficult to see when hunting. The sun bittern is effectively camouflaged along the banks of the swamps where it hunts the insects. Certain small birds feeding on the ground easily blend with their background. Other small and large birds, such as the chachalakas, wood rails, and curassows, are found in areas where they are difficult to observe. The majority of listed birds mimic the vegetation of their habitats. The shells or carapace of turtles are totally defensive tools. The armadillo has a flexible armor like those of medieval knights. It does not restrict the movement of the animal, and like the carapace of turtles, its armor grows with it. This is also true of the caimans and crocs, although considering their other survival tools, it would seem unnecessary at times. Among the invertebrates, there are also outstanding examples, such as the land snails. The hermit crab uses the shells of other dead snails, and as they grow, they change their shells for larger ones. Crustaceans, such as the crab, also possess a rigid external covering. Many insects and arachnids possess hard external shells that protect their vital organs. Some beetles, besides protecting their wings with hard sheaths, also possess horns. Deer have developed antlers as their principal defensive arm. Some species use hiding places, both for sleeping and for protection. The burrowing owl is the only owl that lives principally on the ground, either by burrowing tunnels themselves or appropriating those abandoned by the armadillo. The bananaquit builds globular nests as its dormitory, even when not nesting. Some swallows sleep in holes in trees, as do most woodpeckers. The tamandua also usually sleeps in holes in trees. Many other mammals may or may not employ caves for sleeping. Serpents have always been feared by man, both for their strength and for the poison they are capable of injecting. Although the majority kill by suffocation, poisons have always been a principal tool of a small number of serpents as a means of defense and to capture their prey. The poisons and toxins injected by insects and arachnids as a defense against their enemies is also well known. In the case of other species, most action is indirect. The bite of animals with or without teeth may cause serious infection due to the number of microorganisms found in their mouths. Some that are apparently harmless and without teeth, such as the iguana, secrete an enzyme capable of dissolving cellular tissue. Probably the most common mechanism of defense is strategic withdrawal or retreat, employed in the animal world to avoid a dangerous confrontation or to flee from the enemy, even if the animal has the necessary tools to win a fight. Spines or spurs are defensive mechanisms used by many of the inhabitants of the natural world, some as passive arms, as in the case of the porcupine, and others as an active weapon, such as the southern lapwing. Certain insects and invertebrates announce their toxic character with bright colors or strong odors, both of which are impressed upon the memory of their attackers from previous experience. There are species that have developed certain senses in preference to others. Carnivorous birds generally possess a greater sense of vision in order to spot their prey. Other members of the order, such as the turkey vulture, possess a greater sense of smell in order to find hidden carrion. Certain insects possess enormous composite eyes in comparison with their bodies. The majority of mammals rely mostly on their sense of smell to find their prey or perceive their enemy. Serpents can savor their environment with their tongue in order to detect their possible prey, and like other reptiles, they can detect or hear vibrations on the ground. Many insects can perceive the ultraviolet range of the electromagnetic spectrum, which gives them certain advantages over others. The sense of touch, especially with the beak or feet, helps numerous birds to find their prey in the soil or in water and marshes. The majority of insectivorous birds that hunt in the water, on the ground, or in flight depend very much on their sense of sight, which generally is the most developed in birds. We know that the main tool of birds is the possibility of flight, which they are capable of due to the fact that their upper extremities have evolved to produce wings, they have feathers, and they are very lightweight as their bones are hollow and filled with air. In some species, such as the frigate bird, their feathers weigh more than the rest of their body. The little rapid hummingbirds, upon adapting to nectar, developed a motor system that permits them to move their wings at more than 60 times a second, stop in mid-air, and even fly backwards. Alarm calls are employed to communicate, for defining territory, and to advise of possible enemies, not only to their fellow birds, but to other inhabitants of the zone. Among mammals, the noises or howls made by the howler monkeys are quite remarkable, made possible by a well-developed bone in their throats. The majority of birds of prey use whistles, shrieks, or growls to communicate. Caciques have a very ample vocabulary and are capable of imitating other birds. The songs of many birds, such as the tropical mockingbird, are extremely musical and attractive. The same is true of the troupial. The noises made by Watson are as prehistoric as their appearance. With certain variations, herons and egrets have characteristic sound. There is the typical contact calls and songs of the common thornbird when communicating with its mate. The strident calls of the southern lapwing in the savanna. Then there is the noisy chachalaca and the voluminous calls of the large horned screamer. Some animals use gestures, such as the agouti, who bristles its fur when warning its family of danger. The efficiency with which animals use certain natural resources, or even those provided by man, is yet one more form of adaptation to their natural environment. When there are no trees in the savanna, certain birds use the back of mammals as lookouts. They also feed on the external parasites of these mammals. The roughest-tailed jacamar nests in abandoned termite nests. Some birds will nest in holes available in man's construction. Numerous animals exploit man's waste products to survive. Carrion feeders have done so for millennia. For some species, night is their niche and haven. As a form of protection from man, the majority of solitary mammals search for food at night. Some birds have developed very large eyes to hunt insects and small vertebrates in the dark. Others even hunt in lagoons. In the vegetable world, plants have developed special morphologies to attract insects or birds by odor or color, thus achieving pollination and developing the extraordinary biodiversity of plants on our planet. At times, we may have asked why animals tend to be found in groups. The answer to this question is very simple in principle. We need only to look at ourselves, living in more or less organized societies. Societies or groups, whether simple or complex, have always been an important tool for survival. Although sociality has its own origin, it is restricted to certain zoological groups in each order, family, or genera. Contrary to those found on the African plains, the majority of the mammals in the Orinoco-Amazon basin are solitary forest animals. There is one exception, the capybara, the world's largest rodent, which may exceed 120 pounds. The capybaras are the most characteristic example of a social animal found in the savannas of the neotropics. The gregarious character of the capybara, consisting of a harem, high birth rate, group protection by means of alerting calls, their amphibious lifestyle, the communal care of the young by the females, are all characteristics which have aided in the survival of this species. The howler monkey is the largest monkey of South America, reaching close to a yard in size, not including its tail, and weighing up to 22 pounds. With the aid of their prehensile tail, they spend most of their time in trees, eating leaves as well as fruits and flowers. The male is larger than the female, and his large mandible is immediately noticeable. They live in groups of up to 10 individuals, usually with just one male, but at the most 2 males. The medium-sized capuchin monkeys have a very complex social system. The groups may vary from 5 to 40 individuals, with 1 to 3 adult males, up to 8 adult females and their young, as well as a floating male population. The dominant hierarchies are well defined, based on aggressive interaction, which in turn influences access to the food supply. Each group uses an area of approximately 490 to 740 acres, but the areas may overlap. The capuchin's body size is large considering their diet, which consists mainly of fruits and insects. Capuchin monkeys use distinct alarm calls to warn members of their group as to the type of danger. They are even capable of indicating if the threat is a terrestrial or aerial predator. Birds have varying and different motivations for forming social groups. Some members of the family of herons and egrets form large communal roosts, usually along banks of rivers and lagoons. This has been described as a reduced social phenomenon. During the reproductive season, members of this family tend to nest in heronade, in the same or similar areas as they are colonial nesters. It is possible to find hundreds or even thousands of the heron egret family feeding in lagoons or marshes, along with other species that share these habitats. In all of the above instances, they are not really carrying out a collective labor, but rather taking advantage of the fact that many eyes help to detect danger and sound the alarm. Also, in a large congregation, the effort required to find a mate is greatly reduced. Ducks form huge flocks of thousands for feeding, when they are molting, and during migration. The caciques are colonial during the nesting period. The male is polygamous, having numerous females that construct their individual nests, incubate the eggs, and tend to their young, as per instructions from the male expressed by his characteristic displays and calls. Outside of the nesting seasons, the caciques are solitary, except at night, when they form huge roosts, and when the concert of their calls is absolutely deafening. Carrion feeders may be solitary or even join in small groups in their general feeding areas. But when a dead animal is spotted by the first vultures, a huge group will form quickly, capable of finishing off a dead cow in a matter of hours. In this case of social behavior, diverse categories of dominance are displayed, resulting in the amount of food obtained by the dominant birds. Aggression is light and limited to pecking or persecution, and shoving those of inferior status away. There is always an evident winner. Twice a year, swallows migrate in north-south directions in huge flocks. Certain concentrations of reptiles and amphibians seem to be more physically induced due to their habitat. This is especially noticeable during the dry season. This general description of sociability would not be complete without the inclusion of insects. Social insects form huge colonies that may reach several million individuals. In each colony, the individual tasks are coordinated and regulated for the good of the whole. Communication between the various members of the colony is by gestures, by their antennas, by means of secretions passed from one individual to another, and by pheromones, a chemical substance giving such varied messages as the route to follow, the whereabouts of food, including the distance and quality, and also recognition between the various members of the colony. Finally, pheromones are used as a sexual attraction. There is so much to be learned from these small creatures that they are helping us to understand our own complex social relationships. Nature is a web of physical and social relations that promotes the recycling of energy and nutrients to obtain an equilibrium that we have baptized as ecology. Nevertheless, man's intervention by indiscriminate hunting of certain species and by provoking the disappearance of others by contamination or destruction of their habitat has resulted in a pernicious degradation of nature, a degradation that has been both qualitative and quantitative. Nature obviously does not have the necessary arms or capacity to throw off this kind of degradation. It is therefore up to man to avoid a future extinction, which could well be the last.